software is great and it can help automate a lot of things in the compliance world, but it's one of those systems similar to your security practice or your backups or really patching or anything IT. You're only going to get as much out of it as you put into it.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Incident Report presented by Quest Technology Management. I'm Paul Burke, Director of Technology Communications. Every week, I'm joined by VP of Sales and Partnerships, Adam Burke. The Incident Report brings you conversations with thought leaders, business innovators, and channel mavericks to help you stay productive and agile in a changing technology landscape. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Incident Report. This is episode 25. I'm your host, Paul Burke. Adam, how are you doing?
Paul, I'm excited to be here. And as we were just discussing, I recently invested in a table for my area where we record podcasts. So I am fully stable and operational in my little cave where we record. So very excited about that.
So first, I said I'm the host. I'm a co-host. You're the co-host. We're co-hosting this together. Finally, my co-host has a table. That's very exciting. Adam, congratulations.
It's a huge leap forward, innovative, and earth-shattering development today. So I know all our listeners are extremely happy with this recent development. Nothing but upside ahead.
Because before this, you were just laying down on the floor.
I'm not going to give away the secrets, Paul, but you oftentimes had problem with the echo in my office. So I found a smaller venue where there's less echo. We're working it out as we chip away here.
Well, I will say today, Adam, since you're sitting up, it sounds like the timbre of your voice already richer, because you're getting that full expansion of your lungs. You're not laying on the floor, you're sitting up.
It's magical. It's going to set the internet on fire. I'm fully sure of that.
Adam, you have the tone of a man who wants a topic change.
I do. I'm looking for it and ready to pivot.
Well, here we go, Adam. Pivot coming. The first story we're covering, by the way, you guys, we're here to talk about the information in the channel that we think you need to know. All the links are in the description, and we're starting with channelfutures.com. Telarus hosted their big partner summit. Adam, this was in the news. Quest was in attendance. How did it go?
Well, it was really fantastic. Telarus and the partner community put on an awesome event in Salt Lake City. It was Olympians of the channel themed. So we had some pretty amazing Olympic athletes in attendance and giving some pretty powerful keynotes about going for it and kind of incrementally adjusting your business and how your outlook on life. It was really cool. We had some vendor time where we got to meet new partners, talk about what we do in the channel and how we help them with their businesses. We've been in the channel for 12 years and have built out our program. Gary Schick, myself, and a few others were at attendance, and it was a lot of fun because, kind of hard to say this, but it's been 12 years and this was one of the first events where it felt like we were part of the organization, part of the channel. We were a known entity. It only took 12 years to get there, but it was a lot of fun. A lot of people we've known for a long time. Good to catch up in person and talk about, what's changing in security, what's changing in business resumption services, all the different things that Quest does. We're pretty unique as an MSP provider in the channel. It was a great event.
Were there any keynotes that jumped out to you that you enjoyed?
Yeah, there were some fantastic keynotes. Adam went over what he sees as far as what's coming up next. Dan Foster is their Chief Revenue Officer who joined about 8 months ago, and he brought up some interesting facts as far as the size of the deal that channel partners are closing. So that was a lot of fun. And then I don't know if everyone knows Mallory I'm going to mess up her last name, Wegman, but she was a gold medal Paralympian. She shared her story. That was really powerful. She was paralyzed from the waist down, but ended up winning multiple gold medal swimming events as a U.S. representative. So she was there, and that was really cool to hear her story. I'm always amazed how these people who have like real life events, right, who've dealt with serious things in their life come in and tell their story and then kind of translate it into, okay, that's a serious thing. How does that affect your day-to-day life? What does that actually mean? And they really kind of break it down as far as, incremental decisions and what are you going to do next and all those compounding small positive decisions. That was really cool. She did a great job.
It sounds like a really good event. Were there questions or concerns that you heard from agents that stood out?
They're always kind of looking for what's next, what's happening, what we're seeing from a business climate standpoint, what we're seeing from breaking into security. We brought up a lot of our some of our health checks and some of our different ways to engage from a security perspective. A lot of Telarus community and a lot of our partner community kind of comes from traditional telecommunications, circuit, network side of the house. So they're always trying to help their clients increase security, but not always sure where to start. So, we've been doing this a long time and they're always open and willing to try new things. So one of the things we were highlighting a lot at this conference is our cybersecurity checkup program. And those are great entry points for people who don't traditionally engage in a cybersecurity practice or conversation to get involved in it. So we were helping them kind of go through that and start the conversation with their customers. So our checkups focus on individual services such as email security, patching, endpoint protection, backup, DNS, firewall, and VPN services. Those are all building blocks to a security framework and to helping clients improve their security posture. But, I just rattled off like 10 different things, right? Not quite sure exactly someone new to security is going to be able to tie that into where a customer wants to go. So we try to start with one or two, maybe three, and just, have a high level conversation, kind of like we talked about last week. Hey, at a 5th grade level, what are you trying to do for this customer and what's the customer trying to achieve? Our cybersecurity checkup program really resonated at this event. We're definitely, I think, going to pursue that more with these folks.
Did you see agents and vendors kind of moving towards the cybersecurity, towards that mindset?
Yeah, everyone's trying to get involved in cybersecurity. There's definitely a lot of investment going there. So people are really just trying to get their arms around how do they add value to their customers in that space? How can they get involved in the conversation? How can they cut through the marketing noise and actually get to a business outcome? That was some of the best conversations we had with our partners at the event was, okay, what's the business outcome your clients are trying to achieve? And how do we identify that outcome with them and then apply the appropriate tools or the appropriate services to help them get there?
Nice. And you mentioned money going into cybersecurity, a lot of money going into cybersecurity. And I think that's a great segue into the second article we wanted to talk about. This article comes from channelE2E.com. Softbank Venture Capital Investment Concerns, Why MSPs and MSSPs Should Care. And I didn't know this, Adam, but Softbank is going through a lot of issues right now. Not only is Softbank have one of the largest venture capital funds, but they're dealing with some high stress situations involving record financial losses amid continued executive departure.
Yeah, they had some key executives leave. So they have a fund called the Vision Fund, and it's kind of right up there. I'm not sure if it's quite in the same performance as like Kathy Wood's ARK investments, but it's not doing that great. It's one of those funds that's very extreme long term, but some of these high flying organizations might not be returning as much capital to their investors as the initial plan. They are seeing some staff turnover. And why is this in a channel article? It could be a signal that maybe some of their investments aren't performing as well as they thought they were, or, they're missing the mark on what they're going after. They have some huge investments in some pretty relevant players in the channel. X8 is one of them. It's one of a kind of a dozen firms that they're invested in, a couple $100 million invested in them. Pretty significant organization. I think looks like they raised about $185 million from the venture fund. So not sure exactly what's going on there, but it's a big deal when you see that kind of turnover. And in the venture capital world, these organizations are going to have to start marking their assets to actual market value, and that can be challenging.
So it's interesting because the article mentions that while a lot of companies are cutting costs and cutting staff, it looks like Pax8 is still in growth mode, and they say that the cloud marketplace provider for MSPs has 1,182 employees and 57 job openings listed on LinkedIn as of last week. So it doesn't look like they're cutting staff and they're still trying to grow. But at the same time, other SoftBank investments like OneTrust and CyberReason had staff cuts and layoffs, which just happened in June.
Yeah, that's always tough. Those types of moves in the channel. We are seeing some more layoffs, unfortunately. That is something that in some of the venture capital backed firms and even some of the publicly traded organizations, people are going through layoffs. So it's unfortunate to see that some of these firms that ramp really quickly and go after big market share, it's a little bit feast or famine in that world. And I think some of these organizations are looking for, you got to be generating real revenue and real returns. If you're not, the financial games as far as manipulating revenue and different reporting, investors are looking for real cash flow right now, especially since we are in a recession. We had 2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP. So we are in a recession right now, and people that control the money flow in this country and, Softbank outside of this country, they are evaluating that and cutting back.
Did you know Vision Fund owns stakes in 269 firms?
Vision Fund is huge.
I had no idea it was that big. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And right now, these firms are worth $37.2 billion at the end of June, compared with the acquisition cost of $48.2 billion. That's a big delta.
Yep. We'll see what happens when interest rates adjust a little bit and how these kind of things play out. But yeah, there's one of the things that a lot of venture capital firms are dealing with is they have some stated valuations that aren't necessarily market driven. So the nice thing about public markets is you get to know what type of a multiple is on a company, right? It's all public. You get to see their filings, you get to see their revenue numbers, you get to see how their CFO is reporting. Private companies, not so much. There's some stated valuations and there's some industry standard as far as what you're paying for that revenue and that multiple valuation, but there's going to be some true up as far as the private market versus what these assets are really worth.
And SoftBank is private.
Well, SoftBank isn't private, but their venture fund is venture capital. So they're investing in private companies that have not gone through an initial public offering or have not entered into public markets for the most part.
Got it.
So if you're not in public markets, you don't have to tell anybody what's really going on. But if you're laying off a bunch of people and you're firing all your top executives, it's usually not because you're killing it.
It's those subtle signs that there might be a problem.
I'm not a detective, but I did watch Bosch, and it's a good show.
Oh, nice.
It's on AWS and AWS Cloud. We're tying it all together, Paul.
Beautiful full circle work. Adam, we're moving on. Oh, I was trying to figure out a way to tie this together, but I cannot.
Just go blunt force then.
All right, guys, Channel Insider. You like it, you love it. We're going to it. ChannelInsider.com. What MSPs need to know to offer compliance services. Adam, compliance is a key part of most businesses, but not all organizations can afford a full-time compliance expert. In fact, 34% of businesses outsource at least part of their compliance needs. Because of the growing needs, many managed service providers, MSPs, are considering the addition of a compliance as a service, CAS, to their current offerings. But what do MSPs need to know to offer this effectively? Adam, would you like to guess? Because there is a lot of things on this list, and chances are one of your guesses will be accurate.
Well, so the first thing, and not to be devil's advocate here, but the first thing would be is our company is going to buy that from an MSP, and how are you going to communicate to your clients that you actually have a service that's worth their time for compliance, right? So that's all great. Compliance as a service is a fantastic kind of marketing term. But what does that actually mean to an end user? What are they dealing with, and how are you gonna help them? How are you gonna help them put that together? So one thing that we've seen is it's good for organizations to understand what regulations apply to their business. And if you're an MSP going after that, it would very much behoove you to have people on your team who understand the different regulatory agencies, or at least the different regulations that apply based on what the business is doing. If they're dealing with credit card data and they're billing monthly or annually or weekly for their services and they need to be PCI compliant, that's good. If they're dealing with, make sure you know the different PCI compliance and regulations and requirements there. You understand how to have a conversation around SOC 2, high trust.
And what about HIPAA or GDPR?
Well, yeah, but so HIPAA, so we get this question all the time, are you HIPAA compliant? Like, that question in and of itself kind of signifies you don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, you called me on it, Adam. I'm just reading words off a website.
No, not you. You get that question from people who are like, well, are you HIPAA compliant? Like, well, yeah, The regulation for the service provider, you're helping the organization you're supporting become compliant. You as the service provider, you're required to maintain standards and policies that reinforce that reinforce your client, who is really the one who's the regulated entity. So for example, GDPR is basically individual rights to your data that's enforced from the European Union, right? You have the right to tell an organization, I want my data, everything you have on me, to go away. You don't have, I want you to delete it all. And they have the right, you have the right to tell organizations you don't want them to collect that on you and it needs to be removed. Or basically it's the rights to your data. So if you leave a job, if you stop doing business with an organization, the hardest part about that is how do you classify that user's data, and then how do you validate it you no longer have it, right? So huge investments when this came down. California has a very, very similar act as GDPR in regards to individual rights to your data. So the service provider is not the organization that has to become compliant in that. For compliance as a service, you're helping your customer get to that compliance level. So if you're a healthcare organization and you're evaluating data centers, or you're evaluating infrastructure as service providers, and you ask them, hey, are you HIPAA compliant? Kind of relevant, but also not. It's really, can you support a HIPAA regulated environment with these policies? Like, do you have access control? Do you have video surveillance? Do you have these different controls in place for access to the operating systems? How are you backing it up? Is it in a floodplain? All that kind of stuff. That's relevant to the client you're serving. And so compliance as a service is really helping them to achieve compliance with whatever regulation. So if you're going to do that, you really need to at least familiarize yourself with the regulatory bodies that are doing that.
So to just understand, to just make sure I get this, for instance, Quest can do all of those things. We are not HIPAA compliant because we do not have to be HIPAA compliant, but we can offer all the things that allow an organization to be HIPAA compliant who must be.
Yeah, so HIPAA compliance specifically, and the article lays it out pretty well here. It applies to healthcare providers, insurance companies, and other organizations that handle personal medical data. So it's a mandate for the protection of that data, and it has some teeth in it. It prohibits basically sharing information without the patient's consent. So what that means is, like, as a provider, you can have a secure environment, but the application that resides on top of it, you have to go in there and mandate that all the controls are in place to limit the sharing of that data where it's not approved. So we can have all the beans and bolts and everything all set up and arrayed, perfect. That application layer, those controls, the policies, how information's shared, how the information is protected, that's a whole other game that when you're helping an organization go through compliance, you can help them document that. So access control, how your people are getting access to data, how it's being shared, how it's being tagged, how it's being identified, all that stuff, very critical. And you gotta document where you're at, and then you got to help people enforce the policies going forward. So a lot of work to do there. There's a huge challenge the more regulations come down. So it's yeah.
I understand. Adam, important question from the article. Do you need compliance certification? While you likely don't have to have a compliance certification to offer services for most industries, clients may be wary to hire you for their compliance needs if you aren't certified. Some of the rules of compliance are tricky, and businesses want to know that they're outsourcing the work, it will be handled correctly. A certification gives them that peace of mind. Adam, what do you think about compliance certifications?
Yeah, so those compliance certifications are great. There are some key ones that are good to consider. The article lays out a few of them around healthcare compliance, compliance and ethical professionalism, and regulatory compliance manager, all that good stuff. Those are fantastic. There are other certifications that you'll go through, right? So if you're dealing with a healthcare organization, you're going to have to sign what's called a BAA oftentimes. So it's a business associates agreement where you're basically agreeing to some of the controls that organization has in place. And you're saying, yes, I'll support what they're doing, and those can have some teeth in them as far as like our liability is your liability, and you go through all that. So you're going to have to probably going to have to get very comfortable executing BAAs, and then, SOC type 2, type 3, SSAE 16, or sorry, excuse me, SSAE 18 now. Third-party audits are also something that can help when people are evaluating if you're, really in this game to help from a serious standpoint.
While reading this, I came across something I hadn't thought of before, that the software that you might encounter in a tech stack. So when you're dealing with a new customer, they might have their own security and compliance software that you have to integrate into what you are already using as an organization. Do we find that very often, or do many people who are looking for compliance say, hey, we don't have software, you bring it all in?
They've usually gone down the path with one or a few in the past. So there's different compliance platforms. We work with a few of them, and it's really software is great, and it can help automate a lot of things in the compliance world. But it's one of those systems similar to your security practice or your backups or really patching or anything IT. You're only going to get as much out of it as you put into it. So if you're going to invest in compliance software or risk management software, you need to be investing in the long term, because it's going to be, it's a constant system for updating. So yeah, when we come in, we'll sometimes be asked to leverage what they've already invested in. And that's kind of a key thing that we do from a differentiation standpoint is we will help operate, manage, and maintain existing systems that organizations have already kind of built their practice around.
Okay.
Right. We don't have a rip and replace mindset where some people might, but we will leverage, the tools they've already invested in, that everyone's got some type of software package in place for the most part. If they don't, that's great. We can start greenfield with them and go through a business case for what kind of fits best.
Great. Listener, I don't know about you. I hope you're learning stuff, because I feel like I'm learning stuff every week I jump on here. So this has been really helpful. Adam, anything else that we should know about the compliance article that I missed?
No, I think it's great. It's a good area for folks to invest in. We have a partner program, so kind of similar to how we were talking about helping out folks at the Telarus Partner Summit last week. We've built out a practice that helps to support MSPs, VARs, consultants around the country. We have a lot of this built out, and definitely happy to talk to anybody who would want to go through this with us. We've been through it, both at the state and the federal, different banking institutions, those types of things, and a lot of healthcare. So if anyone would like to establish a compliance program or wants to go through it, we've built that out and would love to talk to you.
Thanks, Adam. Again, thanks for joining us on the Incident Report. Oh, real quick, Adam, I don't know if you know, but today is National Book Lovers Day. So go treat yourself, everybody, and read a book that's your favorite or one you've never read. Actually, which makes me wonder, Adam, what is your favorite book?
Hey, my favorite book?
Bernstein Bears?
Bernstein Bears is quality. I love Good Night Moon. But one of my favorite books, we talked about it once on the podcast, is Jocko Willink, Dichotomy of Leadership. Great book around dealing with, the idea of extreme ownership, but at the same time, how you effectively deal with that from a leadership standpoint. So I probably pick up that book at least a couple times a week as I'm kind of looking for refreshes on things. So that's
Wow.
a great one.
I think I have an Audible version of that. I don't think I've listened to that yet.
It's definitely a good one if you're dealing with a little bit of complexity and trying to figure out a path forward. It's a great leadership book.
Gotcha. Adam, thank you for asking. My favorite book is Blankets. It's a great graphic novel. Highly recommend it. I pick it up every year. So that's the difference between you and me, Adam. I'm a graphic novel kind of guy about a boy becoming a man, learning about himself, who he wants to be. And I guess in a lot of ways, same thing with Jocko Willink, taking control, becoming a man. I don't know.
I appreciate the fact that you point out I didn't really care what your favorite book was, and I didn't ask. So it was a subtle move you went there with. Basically, yeah, thanks for asking. Oh, you know what? I didn't ask at all. Oh, but wrap it up.
If you want, I can edit you asking in later after the podcast.
You could, but that would be a lie, Paul. That would be a lie.
Yeah, just the truth here.
Yep.
So also our producer wants us to know, Darcy, that Brian Greene's Fabric of the Universe is her favorite book.
Oh.
I've never heard of it. Very curious.
Fabric of the Universe. We'll have to check that one out.
Yeah. All right. So there's your book suggestions, article suggestions. Adam, thanks again for joining. This is episode 25 of the Incident Report.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. Have a good week, everybody.
Thanks so much for listening. The Incident Report is brought to you by Quest Technology Management. With over 40 years of experience, Quest is a leading technology integrator working seamlessly with your staff and systems to achieve your IT goals. Learn more about everything they do at questsys.com. And if you have questions or suggestions for the podcast, you can always email Adam and myself at theincidentreport@questsys.com. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time.